can jump in at any time, but Bob, I'm going to say, like with that history, you know, what was it like when the Panthers came to town? And what exactly was going on here at that time? And then after you talk, I'll take you into the Piety Street house, like you were there in Malik's words, and let you hear what it was like.
Okay. Keith has done a great job of framing the environment at the time. New Orleans, 1969-70 was completely segregated. There were no advocacy pieces in place with the exception of NAACP and some of the counterculture outside the box, if you will, groups like the Panthers Corps and what have you. The blacks at that time were what, about 35% of the population, I believe, not a majority, certainly in a big-time minority and a minority or an oppressed minority at that time. No black elected leadership whatsoever. Moon's election in 1969-70 cycle was really the beginning of New Orleans making an adult decision as to whether or not it was going to come into the 20th century. The race really boiled down to Moon Landrieu versus Jimmy Fitzmaurice. There was a variety of fringe candidates, as they always are in New Orleans. Guy that, you know, carried a gorilla around, was dressed as a gorilla. I mean, really some colorful candidates. They got colorful more and more as they went along. But in this instance, this became kind of a dead serious situation because in the debate between Moon and Jimmy Fitz, the question was asked, if elected, would you be willing to bring black people, hire black people? And Jimmy's answer was hire qualified people, which was obviously the code word for white. Moon didn't draw a breath and said yes. The rest was history.
Half and half.
Yeah, that was kind of how it worked. We had been in office about 6 months. I think we came in May of 1970 and got a call that Black Panther Party had occupied a portion of the Desire Housing Project. When we came into office, after all of the hoopla and the white linen suits and all that, my sense was that, as I told the mayor, that Desire was probably the hottest hotspot in the city. So I went down and I lived in Desire for about a week with a guy by the name of Henry Fagan, who's not with us now, but who was really quite a hero to a lot of people. He was the titular mayor of Desire and was just a fantastic human being. And so the conditions became quite evident. When it rained in Desire, the sewers were plugged, the kids swam, swimming as you can call it, in water that was elbow, waist deep. There were rats the size of cats, drugs and crime and all of the pathologies and all that you could think of that was bad was in that city. And the most dangerous part of Desire in terms of the demographic was that the bulk of the people in Desire were below the age of 18, which was sort of a catalytic. It created this cauldron for discontent. And there was, when Desire was literally locked off. And so if the bridge was raised and the train was passing, then you couldn't get out. So there were mothers who had babies that were born in ambulances that couldn't get out. There were a number of ambulance kids that came out of Desire at that time. And it was just happened to be that way in terms of the geography of the town. But anyway, we got a call, and so we were all summoned to the mayor's office at a 3 a.m. staff meeting. I think I was the only African American, maybe Pete Sanchez. I think it was at least two of us. And so one of my white colleagues volunteered me to go to police headquarters with Moon to help direct the operation to go route the Panthers out. So I, as gingerly as I could, explained to the mayor that while I'd been in the military and I'd a year prior to that time been in Southeast Asia with the U.S. Army, that I was not hired to be his military tactician. So he didn't quite understand that. And I'll say this with this as much sanitized version of it. It's a little bit more graphic in the book, but I explained to him that I could not do that. And I asked him if he and I could go into the side office, and we visited, and I became a little bit more graphic. that I was not going to do that. And that where I was going to be was down in Desire to see if I could prevent it, with the help of some other friends who also bite to anyone. And as I walked out, I said to him that the reason why black folks could not be pro-police in 1970, that the corollary to black folks being pro-police in 1970 was a pro-police argument, and that the history books were certainly not going to let black folks be pro-police. So I said, you know, I'm going to do what I got to do, and the rest of folks can do what they got to do. So someone suggested I take a police car, you know, and go down there. I said, what? Isn't that sweet? Yeah. So I took the car, and I parked that sucker about 5 miles away and walked in. So got down there, and at that point, the Panthers were creating a perimeter of Cayenne because they knew that they would send the dogs in first. So I had been arrested. I went to school in Atlanta. When I was a New Orleans native, I was at Clark, at those days Clark College, not Clark Atlanta University. And as of March 1960, I was arrested along with 116 other students, led by Dr. King's brother, A.D. King, for eating in the wrong place. Our group hit Sprayware's federal cafeteria. We hit 11 different places all at the same time. The African American field directors provided transportation for us. The lawyers were waiting to bail us out. We had observers to observe any comments. But leading up to that, and this is part of the flavor that Keith was sharing with you about those times, we were oriented. Dr. King brought in a group of people to train. We were handpicked from the 5 universities, that's Spelman, Atlanta University, Morris Brown, Clark, Spelman, Gammon Theological Center. We were made to understand that you had to sign on to nonviolence, and that if you didn't, then you couldn't be a part of this movement. And they went so far as to say that, you know, if someone, like sometimes brothers and sisters were in school together, if someone broke a chair over your sister's head while you all were waiting to try and get served in one of these 11 places, you couldn't move a muscle. We were taught how to protect ourselves, you know, using this and this, because these are harder than this is. So we hit all these places at the same time. My group hit Sprayware's federal cafeteria. Walked in, the boss comes out, kind of a boss hog type. I wish I had my gun. We had been so steeped, we're going all the way back to Jesus Christ, Gandhi, in the notion of nonviolence, and Dr. King was very strategic in this. Some of the teachers and the trainers were Korean veterans, and so one night, I'll never forget, one guy was teaching us and waxing eloquently about nonviolence, and a guy walked up to him and spat in his face. And boy, he, you know, all of his military training came back on him, and then he just relaxed and continued, wiped his face and continued. Because even the trainers had to understand the significance of this movement. But anyway, after all this, I went into the U.S. military and was taught 12 different ways to kill a person, but that's a separate story. But this particular movement was really showered with Dr. King's presence, and we got to know him, and he had a great sense of humor, but he was a strategically minded person. And what that did was to give me some standing, so when I went over to talk with the Panthers, I said, you know, is there any other way we can work this out? As they were creating a perimeter for the dogs, and they said, no, brother, we got to do what we got to do. I said, I understand. So it was on, and I could stop there and